Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Extra Podcast, a 10-minute show for the gardener on the go. I'm your host, Joy Barrett. Alongside is my wife and co-host,
Holly Bear.
This show is dedicated to the home gardener who wants to grow more food or has never grown at all and wants to learn. This show is sponsored by DollarSeed.com for your flower, vegetables, and herb seeds. All organic seeds, all only $1 a pack. DollarSeed.com. And by WillowSpringsSoap.com, handmade soaps using the cold kettle process while using traditional methods. WillowSpringsSoap.com. Well, today we're going to talk about how to improve your garden from last year to this year. Each year we plant a garden and we want it to be better than the year before. So we have 4 tips or suggestions here that will help improve your garden from last year to this year. One is, are you growing the vegetables that can be grown in your area?
So, for example, if you live in the Midwest, you probably don't want to try to grow any sort of typically tropical plants that are grown in warmer climates. You want to stick to the plants that do well in your area. And that begins with the early spring. Some ways you can extend the early spring is by using cold frames. And then as it gets into a little bit more warmer temps, you can grow things like lettuce, spinach, and peas, which will tend to bolt in the hot weather, but they'll do in the cooler, moderate spring temperatures.
If you're uncertain if the items that you want to grow can be grown in your area, it's time to do some research during the winter months. You can do your research even if you're certain that vegetables that you plant in your garden can be grown in the climate region or zone that you live in. It's good to know the specific types of, let's say tomatoes. There's different varieties that grow better in different areas. So it's good to know the type of vegetable or fruit that grows best, the type of variety, species of that. Another thing you want to look at is cool weather crops. Like Holly was talking about, are you planting them at the right time of the year? Cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower are traditionally cool weather crops. They do not do very well in the heat and the hot of the summer. So you want to plant them early in the spring or late in the fall. Tomatoes, on the other hand, are a hot summer crop that do best when it's between 75 and 90 degrees. You want to get them in the ground when the ground is no cooler or air temperature is no cooler than 55 degrees. Otherwise, typically those tomatoes will not survive. So you want to be aware of the temperatures and the type of vegetables that you're planting and when you're planting them.
Another thing that we want to think about, which is step 2 here, where you grow, is it full sun shade or partial shade?
You can look at your yard. There's multiple climates in your yard. Now, if you're growing in an open field, you're going to have full sun almost all the time unless it's like cloudy outside. If you're in a typical suburban backyard, you're going to have areas where you're going to get a lot of sun, you're going to get partial sun, and you're going to get mainly shade. Now, some plants do well in partial shade or can grow in partial shade unlike other crops. For example, beans, beets, carrots, peas can do well in partial shade, but do remember that if they're in partial shade, the productivity and the size of the fruit is going to be smaller than if it was in a full sun. So you want to take in note of what vegetables grow best in partial shade, partial shading being 3 to 6 hours of sunlight, and what does good in full sun. For example, tomatoes, corn, cucumbers do best in full sun. Another thing you want to keep in consideration in your garden is the quality of soil you are growing in. There's no more disappointments in the work all year. Plant your vegetables and fruits, water them to end up with piddly, sad productivity of your vegetables at the end of the growing season. One of these results may be because of the soil you're growing it in. What type of soil is it? Is it clay, thick, dense soil, loose, sandy, loomy soil, or good organic compost?
Soil also can be too acidic or it can be too alkaline. So you want to make sure that soil is at the proper pH balance. And you can buy a soil tester for pretty cheap, pretty cost effective. Another thing you can do is if your soil is one or the other, you can always add things. You can amend your soil. And it's pretty simple to make those changes.
Yes, a soil tester will give you a general idea of which way you need to go. And most plants like a neutral pH balance of about a 7.5. So it depends on how elaborate you want your information to be coming out of your garden. But you want to get a good idea. And if you need to bring in compost, you want to bring in good organic compost and work into your soil if you're unable to produce the quantity of compost that you need for your garden or raised bed. Another thing you want to look at with the soil is trace minerals. Now, with typical fertilizer, you're going to have three numbers that you're going to see on your fertilizer bag, which are
three minerals are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Now, if you are using any sort of animal manure, it may be higher in nitrogen, because nitrogen is good for the plants. It helps them have their green color, but if you have too much, it basically burns the plant.
So with those three elements, those are not just the only three elements you want in your soil. You want a lot of trace minerals, as if you followed John Coulter at growingyourgreens.com. He uses glacial rock dust, which has many trace minerals that he incorporates into his raised beds. And by incorporating this azomite, which can be expensive, but is greatly beneficial to your plants, they're going to taste better, they're going to produce better, and they're going to be healthier for you because they have everything that the plant needs to produce properly. So that's something you want to take in consideration when applying a fertilizer to your garden and increasing the health of the soil. We also want to take a look at watering.
Watering is obviously important because your plants need water to grow, but you want to make sure you're watering at the right times and have the right amount. Watering in the early morning or in the late evening is going to be what's best for your plants, and you also want to water at the base of the plant, not water low overall.
Exactly. With tomato plants, 90% of the diseases the plant experiences is from soil and water splashing up on the leaves. And if you can avoid that, your plant is going to be healthier and spend more time producing good tasting tomatoes than fighting off diseases that has been caused from water and dirt splashing on the leaves. So you can mulch them, and as well as watering from the base. Don't do the traditional wave watering where you hook a sprinkler system up and it sprays across your garden. Another method that you can use for watering is a form of irrigation.
And one good irrigation form is the earth mist irrigation, which is easy to install, works real well under all sorts of beds, and that way you can have good control of watering. There's also a drip system, and then there's also even something like a rain gutter system like our friend Larry Hall had created.
Right. So depending on your situation, you want to take a look at all the available methods to irrigate your garden. By irrigating your garden, you're going to take less time for you have to watering it. You're going to have to water to the plants, and it's going to be healthier, more productive plants because they have the water they need. So those are just a couple of ideals, a couple of points to better improve your garden from last year to this year.
Might as well take the time now, when you're not busy in the garden or starting seeds, to go ahead and think about what you can change, what you can improve. And also think, the biggest thing also is think about what you're growing and if you've never gardened before, think about what you're going to eat, what you're going to use, and grow, the things that are familiar to you.
So with that being said, know what you want to plant, make sure it can grow in your area, be sure you're planting at the proper time, be sure you have and know the environment or multi-climates in your garden and where the best place to plant those vegetables and fruits are. Look at the soil and see what kind of consistency your soil is. Do you need to add trace minerals, compost to enrich the soil, or how do it better improve the soil you're growing in? And know your watering situation. Look at the possibilities of installing a irrigation system, whether it's underground or drip irrigation. It'll greatly reduce the water bill and the amount of time you'll have to water, and it'll get the water directly to the plants that need it. I'm Joey Baird.
And I'm Holly Baird.
And this is the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Extra podcast, a 10-minute show for the gardener on the go. It was sponsored by DollarSeed.com and WillowSpringsSoap.com. You can find more information on our website at theWisconsinVegetableGardener.com.